Hello, this is Bob of Bob and Ray's Backyard Productions Incorporated. This presentation is about the Delaware and Raritan Canal State Park in scenic and historic central New Jersey and how it can be used as a program resource for scouting units. In addition to the park's regular program activities, there are opportunities for fun and advancement through hiking, biking, horseback riding, kayaking, canoeing, and fishing. This video will focus on hiking. First, however, we present some background information. The central focus of the park, indeed its reason for existing, is the Delaware and Raritan Canal system, which was constructed in the early 1830s to link Trenton on the Delaware River with New Brunswick on the Raritan River. This system effectively then linked Philadelphia on the Delaware River through Trenton with New York City, through New Brunswick on the Raritan River into Raritan Bay and on to New York Harbor. The canal system allowed commerce between Philadelphia and New York City without having to travel the longer, more costly, and more treacherous route down the Delaware River to Delaware Bay, around the southern tip of Cape May, up along the east coast of New Jersey in the Atlantic Ocean, around the northern tip of Sandy Hook, and then into Raritan Bay and New York Harbor. Thus, the canal route was quicker, safer, and more economical, especially for the transport of coal from eastern Pennsylvania, on which New York City depended. The canal system, of almost 70 miles, was dug, mainly by Irish immigrants, mainly using hand tools, between 1831 and 1834, when the canal began operation, and comprised two parts. Approximately 1/3 of its length was a feeder canal along the east bank of the Delaware River from Bull's Island south to Trenton, which supplied water from the Delaware River to the main canal, about 2/3 of the total system length, from Trenton north down the Millstone River Valley to the Raritan River and New Brunswick. Two important features of the canal system should be mentioned at this point, as you will hear about them later in the presentation: locks and swinging bridges. Because the canal could not be built on perfectly flat land, there were points at which the elevation change was too great for safe passage of a vessel. At these points, locks were built. A lock is a chamber in the canal with doors at either end that can be closed and opened. A vessel enters the chamber with the door at the far end already closed. The door behind is then closed, and the water level in the chamber is then raised or lowered, depending on the need, and the vessel can then travel safely ahead into the next stretch of canal. The canal company built a house nearby in which an employee, the lock tender, could live. Similarly, wherever a road was to cross the canal, a bridge was built that could be swung aside to allow passage of a vessel, and a bridge tender's house was built. In the early days of operation, goods were transported on barges towed by mule teams, so a system of towpaths was constructed beside each leg of the canal to allow passage of the mules. These towpaths will be our focus later in the presentation. When steam engines replaced the mules, the towpaths fell into disrepair until they were refurbished by the state when the canals became part of the New Jersey Park system. The D&R Canal functioned for almost 100 years until it was decommissioned at the end of the season in 1932 as no longer economical. You can find out more about the park and its canal system by visiting the park website. www.dandrcanal.com. That's www.dandrcanal.com. Once at the home page, you can follow the various links to park maps, history, program activities, and latest news and alerts. You can also read about the history of the canal system in the following book. Passage Between Rivers by Elizabeth Menzies. This 130-page book was published in 1976 by Rutgers University Press and is still available through various book dealers, including Amazon, eBay, and Alibris. Being situated in central New Jersey, which is often called the crossroads of the American Revolution, the park offers opportunities to see Revolutionary-era structures and follow the path of Washington's army north down the Millstone River Valley after the Battle of Princeton on January 3, 1777, on the way to its winter encampment in Jockey Hollow at Morristown. Let's now watch a brief promotional about the park, after which Ray will introduce a park program activity that offers unique opportunities for fun, exercise, and advancement.
Thanks, Bob. That was a great presentation about the canal and its history. As Bob said in this video, we want to talk about hiking in a park. The towpaths are almost perfect for day hikes of various lengths. The paths are level and well graded for easy walking. The environment is mostly scenic and pleasing to the eye. There are many opportunities to see wild plants and animals, and visit historic structures. The paths have mile markers so that you can check your progress. There are many access points for convenient on and off, and for a support team to provide snacks, water, and drop-off and pick-up for your scouts. In particular, the towpaths provide an easy opportunity for scouts to plan and accomplish successfully the 5, 10, 15, and 20-mile hikes required for the hiking merit badge. Now let's take a look at the logistics for planning a hike in the park.
We're going to talk about planning a hike in the Delaware and Raritan Canal State Park. We'll talk some general principles and then discuss a specific hike that our troop, Troop 12 in Edison, planned and conducted. Before we start, however, we should do some housekeeping. If you want to view this video again, or if you want to obtain copies of files in the latter part of this presentation to use for your own hikes, you can do so by visiting our website, rvd.scoutlander.com. When you reach the home page, click on the folder in the upper left margin labeled Backyard Productions, circled here in red. That will take you to the Backyard Productions page. To see the video again, click on the link associated with hiking in the Delaware and Raritan Canal State Park. To obtain copies of files, scroll down to the bottom of the page and click on the file or files that you want. Now, let's get started. First, you have to decide where you want to hike. Here's a high-level map from the park website of the canal and towpath system, with the feeder canal, Bulls Island to Trenton in the west, and main canal, Trenton to New Brunswick in the east. Do some online research. Perhaps read a book like Passage Between Rivers or something similar. Talk to folks who have been there, and here's a big one, Do some field trips with drive-arounds to get some idea of where things are and what you might want to see. Towpath mileage charts can help with some of this decision making. Here's the chart for both the feeder and main canals from the park website. Towpath access points, that is road crossings, are identified both horizontally and vertically. Each cell within the table then represents the intersection of two access points and shows the total mileage between them. You can pick any access point, and reading back and forth or up and down, you can determine the total accumulating mileage from your start point to each succeeding point in order. You can then plan point-to-point hikes or out and back hikes to cover a desired set of miles, or see how far you would have to hike between two different areas of interest that you would like to visit. After some research and field trips, Ray and I decided to plan our day hike on the main canal because it was more convenient than the feeder canal. We had several criteria for choosing our access points. One, we did not want to hike near population centers, so we avoided Trenton and New Brunswick. Two, we wanted to provide the opportunity for scouts to hike as much as 20 miles. And three, we wanted a point-to-point hike from south to north so that we could end up closer to home. Examination of the mileage chart showed us that starting at the Alexander Road Canal crossing just south of Princeton and hiking north to the South Bound Brook Lock would allow us to meet all criteria. Plus, online research indicated that at least the southern portion of the hike would be quite scenic. So here then were our start and end points. And next is a closer look at our hike area. We then broke this portion of the map up into 3 sections so that we could see greater detail while hiking. This is the section from the start at Alexander Road north to the area of the Rockingham Historic Site. You can see parking areas associated with canal crossings, the picnic area at the Millstone Aqueduct, and the location of historic structures. Here, for example, is the old period home of the Kingston Bridge and Lock Tender. And within sight of the Bridge and Lock Tender's home is the old Kingston Mill Building on the Millstone River. Now, let's go back to the Millstone Aqueduct for a moment. In addition to being a historic structure, the Millstone Aqueduct is also an interesting bit of engineering that needs some explanation in order to understand it fully. The aqueduct is an artificial canal bed built to convey canal water over the confluence of 2 small rivers in the Princeton area. The Millstone, which originated in swampy land east of Princeton, and the Stony Brook, which originated in swampy land south and west of Princeton. The area looks much different now than it must have in 1834 because the 2 river valleys were flooded after 1906 when Andrew Carnegie financed the building of a dam across the Millstone north of here near Kingston to create Carnegie Lake as a gift to Princeton University. You can see the flooded valley of the Stony Brook coming in from the west and that of the Millstone coming in from the southeast, with the aqueduct crossing the confluence to run down the east bank of Carnegie Lake, really the flooded Millstone Valley. Here is another view looking south from the footbridge over the canal, connecting the parking area with the towpath. You can see the aqueduct in the center, water of the flooded Millstone on the upper left, and the flooded Stony Brook, now Carnegie Lake, on the upper right. Okay, let's move on. Here is the map section from Rockingham Historic Site to the 6 Mile Run Reservoir Site. This section includes the Griggstown Causeway, where in warmer months you can rent canoes and stop in the visitor center. Here is a look at the historic Griggstown Bridge Tender's house, which now serves as a visitor's center. And here is the old Griggstown mule barn, where mules that had been towing a barge could be rested, fed and watered, and exchanged for fresh animals to continue the journey, sort of like the Pony Express system of the Old West. Not far downstream from the Griggstown Causeway is the old homestead of John Honeyman, who came to this country as a British soldier, later deserted to the American cause, and gathered and provided to General Washington information that enabled Washington to surprise and capture the Hessian garrison at Trenton early on the morning of December 26, 1776. Here you see the house as it existed around 1905 and a small insert showing a more recent picture. The homestead is located across and uphill of the canal. Finally, this is the map section from the 6 Mile Run Reservoir site to the end of the 20-mile hike at the South Bound Brook Lock. Among other historic structures that you can see along the way in this section is the old Blackwell's Mills bridge tender's house, originally built in 1835. For this hike, we wanted to include and challenge hikers of all abilities and interests. So rather than focus just on hiking merit badge, we created the Troop 12 How Far Can You Hike? Hike. The idea being that with enough support and transportation, tired or footsore hikers could come off the towpath at a road crossing, obtain a ride to subsequent crossings, and, if they wished, return to the trail for more hiking and accumulate more total trail miles. Hikers would then be recognized later for how far they hiked with a certificate presented at an award ceremony. First, we had to announce the event, what we hoped to accomplish and how, and communicate our needs for lots of parent support and drivers to follow the hikers up the trail by nearby roads. Although hikers would be required to carry all necessary items for a day hike, we wanted drivers to carry extra water and snacks for resupply and extra first aid equipment. As stated earlier, we also needed drivers to provide transportation for hikers coming off the trail, a no hiker left behind strategy. Here is a sample of the flyer sent home for our hike in 2008. Don't try to read it. It will be on the RVD website in Word format so that you can download and modify it for your own use if you wish. Hikers were organized into ability and interest groups, accompanied by at least one adult with a cell phone, which were not nearly as common then as today, and we planned to set out just after first light to maximize daylight hours for those wanting to hike 20 miles. A set of detailed directions was provided to all drivers and hikers, along with the route maps shown earlier. These directions also appear in Word on the RVD website, updated as of February 17, 2022. As stated earlier, a certificate was generated for each hiker who participated. Samples are shown here and appear in Word on the RVD website. Notice that the certificates are prepared using Wood Badge font. If you do not have that font loaded on your computer or prefer a different font, simply change the font type on the sample certificate after downloading it from the RVD website. So, now you have the basics for planning your own hike. If you want to hike here at this state park, do some research, take a field trip or two, and always check the park website for alerts on trail status. The canals and towpaths are within river floodplains and can be inundated and damaged by storms. Stay apprised of current conditions. The best time for distance hiking here, especially up to 20 miles, is mid-April through mid-October to allow for sufficient daylight hours and to maximize the opportunity for better weather, more scenic views, and sighting the wildlife that lives in the area. Good luck in planning your hike, and good hiking.